On today's Fallon Forum, we welcome Dr. Karin Huffer, the author of Legal Abuse Syndrome. I did not know what that was till recently. Well, we're about to learn a little bit more about it, and I hope you'll stay tuned for that conversation.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
Najee's Mediterranean Grocery Store is a new business in the Drake neighborhood of Des Moines, featuring Middle Eastern products. Najee's offers a wide range of specialty foods at competitive prices, including hummus, falafel, tahini, pita bread, baklava, kosher, vegetarian foods, and Ethiopian injera bread. If you want to add unique ethnic flavors to your cooking, Najee's is the store for you. It's at 1133 42nd Street in Des Moines, just south of University Avenue. Stop by or call 255-3736 for more information. That's Najee's Mediterranean Grocery, 255-3736.
This is Dr. Holding of the Story County Veterinary Clinic. For 15 years, we have been spaying and neutering feral cat groups at affordable prices. Wild cats destroy game birds and songbirds. A single female cat can produce over 4,000 kittens in 7 years. The shelters are full, so unwanted kittens will be put to sleep. Your cats will stay home and stay healthy. Call us for all your dog and cat needs at the Story County Veterinary Clinic between Ames and Nevada on Highway 30, 1 mile east of Interstate 35, 515-232-8766.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
Hello, folks. Brother Trucker there welcoming us to another edition of the Fallon Forum. And before we get going here, I got to say, told you so. You know, I said Paul Ryan, bad choice, bad choice. Thank you, Mitt Romney, for making a bad choice. Sarah Palin, in a very different way, instead of the hot button social issues, the crazy economic and budget slashing issues. And the official word is out, Gallup poll. 42% of Americans rated Ryan a poor or fair choice as a pick for running mates. To put that in perspective, that's the worst anyone's done since Dan Quayle. Remember Dan Quayle, the guy who thought that in Latin America they spoke Latin, who could spell potato wrong? So that's where Paul Ryan is coming in at. Only Palin and Quayle were rated lower than Ryan in terms of being qualified to be president too. So thank you, Mitt Romney. Again, you're talking to a guy who's majestically disappointed in Barack Obama, but planning to support him because this guy scares the pants off me. Anyway, we're going to talk about that later this week. I got a couple other. Arnie Arneson's going to be with us tomorrow. And Charles Goldman has some thoughts on the subject as well, and you probably do as well. But we've got a different program today. This one focuses on a subject that I have had little familiarity with, and we have a distinguished guest in the studio with us, Karin Huffer. Dr. Karin Huffer is from Colorado Springs, Colorado. She's the author of Legal Abuse Syndrome. And let's just start it off, Karin, by telling us what this means. And folks, I should say this too, if you're always welcome to join the conversation. And if you want to do that, 244-0077. If you're calling locally, long distance, it's 855-244-0077. I know it sounds like a secret agent number. It's not. 244-0077. So, Karin, tell us, legal abuse syndrome, not a term that I've been familiar with, possibly not a term that many of in our audience are familiar with. Tell us what you mean by this.
It really is post-traumatic stress disorder, which you are probably very familiar with, caused by or exacerbated by litigation. So, have you ever been to court, Ed?
Yes. Funny you should ask. I was involved with the first Occupy protest here in Des Moines. Mm-hmm. I was one of the first two arrested and the first to come up on trial. So far, I'm the only one who won, but that took an entire week and a heck of an attorney. But yeah, I've been through it. It did. I will say this. It challenged my confidence in the judicial system.
Yes. When you get involved in litigation, you begin to lose control of a whole lot of things. Mm-hmm. Your finances. If it's protracted litigation, we have what we now call in this country, and this is backed by scholars and research, what's called the nouveau pauvre. Remember, we used to call them the nouveau riche?
Yeah, this is the...
Now we have the new poor.
Yeah.
And these are people who have been caught up in the legal system trying to protect their homes, They're caught up in custody disputes. They're caught up in various things they cannot get out of, and it bleeds them dry. In addition, it leaves them with PTSD.
Right. And some of what you describe in your book, some of the cases you point out are people who get into horrible situations that have nothing to do with the judicial system, but it seems like their experience in the courts exacerbates their distress, their PTSD, the other financial and psychological issues they confront.
Many of them tell me that they would rather have stayed in a domestic violence relationship. They would rather have taken the initial loss. They would rather have done anything than have what they have had in the court in terms of abusive behavior. Now, what we have is a new law since 2009, and your wonderful Senator Harkin was a spearhead person that spearheaded this. This offers the protections of the Americans with Disabilities Act to people with invisible disabilities.
Invisible meaning psychological or?
Right, depression, anxiety, bipolar, PTSD, traumatic brain injury, autism, all of those things that have fallen through the cracks up until now.
Okay.
Now the door is open, and we can help those people get accommodations and get a more fair day in court.
Now, the ADA goes back quite a ways. Harkin has been involved with that issue for a long time. I think part of the reason is he's got family members that have had issues with disability. But were the changes that were beneficial recent or dating back to the original enactment of that legislation?
The original was 1990.
Yeah.
George Bush signed it into law. But in 2008, with what Senator Harkin and a coalition of people from Des Moines, I understand, and I'm eager to meet them, really got on board, and they overturned 4 Supreme Court decisions that had weakened the ADA. And this opened the door for everybody to finally have participatory and testimonial access in addition to physical access to the court.
So the problem is that the courts may rule against you based on an appearance of indifference or arrogance or inability without really knowing the internal issues that you're dealing with.
There you go. You got the picture.
Okay, and so the changes in the law was it 2008 you said?
Yes, went into effect 2009.
Those were intended to try to instruct judges, juries, lawyers. I mean, how did they create awareness about those internal issues?
Well, that's our job. What has happened, it passed as an unfunded mandate.
One of those.
That meant you have to do it, but you have no money for training.
Right.
So what's happened is the courts have been impacted, and they aren't able to train their people. They haven't been able to keep up with it, and no law school that we know of teaches it.
So you really can't blame the courts for that.
Well, they're doing the best they can with what they've got, but they're closing due to economic problems. And what we can show them...
What's closing?
Courts are closing. In California, courts are closing down.
Oh, really?
Yes.
I don't think we're doing that here. Not yet.
Well, perhaps not yet, but trust me, if we don't get to be more efficient in these courts, we're going to see more courts closing down, at least certain days of the week, that kind of thing, and laying people off. But what we need is fairness and justice. We need for people to have a chance to not get sick or injured when they go to court.
Yeah, or to have whatever illness or injury they have to be exacerbated because of the. Yeah, and I know. I mean, it's an intense. It's a very confrontational system we've developed, and I'd like to believe there are better ways to do that. And I do want to later in the program. I want to share with you and my audience an experience I had in India regarding a different approach, a less confrontational approach that I felt was much more holistic and healthy. Let's go to our phone lines again, folks. You're welcome to join the conversation here on the Fallon Forum. Dr. Karin Huffer is my guest. She's the author of Legal Abuse Syndrome. The number to call is 244-0077 or toll free 855-244-0077. Let's go to what we got. Callers from all over the country here today. This is Ruth from Colorado on line 1. Hello, Ruth. Welcome to the program.
Thank you.
What's your story?
I have a question. I'm concerned about all the military personnel coming back from Iraq, some serving multiple tours. with severe cases of PTSD. And there are veterans courts that are popping up all over the country, but whether they get involved with a veterans court or not, I'm seeing that these military personnel are going to court with charges of domestic violence, having their children taken away or put through CPS for a year. They're breaking marriages when in reality, why can't we just treat them after they served our country? And it doesn't seem the ADAAA is playing a part at all, even in the veterans courts.
So the issue is, and again, we're aware of this problem. A lot of young men and women, both, from Afghanistan as well as Iraq, come home to, with experiences they've had that cause deep stress, internal psychological stress that does affect their lives, their employment, their family, and that's been a criticism that many of us have made, is that the troops get lots of support when we send them over. When they come back, that support's not there. And so you're saying, in your experience, you're seeing quite a bit of that.
Yes, a lot.
Do you want to respond to that, Doctor?
Yes, thank you, Ruth, for that. There are two things that come to mind when you ask that question. One is, many times in the Veterans Court, they have to plead guilty in order to use the court. Now, what bothers me about that is they just went over and fought for all of us to have due process of law, and they come home and they're told, well, you have this veterans court that might be better for you, however, you're going to have to plead guilty, and sometimes they are not guilty, and they would like to fight it and have due process. Secondly, if they get accused of something like domestic violence, we have to remember that anybody that has traumatic stress has a problem with expressive speech. Therefore, when they come home and whoever has been missing them wants to sit down and talk, sometimes they can't. They look like they're brooding, they withdraw, and then people put pressure on them, and sometimes they act out their feelings. It is not domestic violence, it's acting out what they can't say.
Well, it can be. The abuse can be real to those on the receiving end, but I think what you're saying is it's important to understand what's going on and why, and to treat the cause, not the symptom.
And it doesn't fit into the regular category of domestic violence, where it's a pattern of behavior. It's an impulse reaction out of frustration and inability to speak.
And Ruth, what you've seen? I'm not sure what your profession is or what your angle is. Maybe you've got family that have come back from overseas and serving in the military. But what's do you have any sense of how prevalent this problem is and whether it is growing? And
well, yes, I had a son who came back from Iraq and suffered from severe PTSD. And instead of diagnosing that, the Army diagnosed him with adjustment disorder, and he went through the courts with domestic violence, and so pretty much the Army is writing a lot of these young people off. And the more I sat there and watched what was happening, I realized it's rampant. It's we're destroying young lives.
Now this sounds like more of a problem of the Veterans Court. And that's really outside the usual.
It's a problem of all the courts.
Okay,
but they all don't use and can't use the Veterans Court. If it's a felony, if it has a large bond involved with it, they usually can't use the Veterans Court. So we have many defenseless people with PTSD in the courts, accused of things, sometimes in criminal court or sometimes in civil and divorce cases, etc. Accused of things they didn't do, but they are defenseless. They have flashbacks, they dissociate, they virtually cannot protect themselves in a court of law, in an adversarial system.
Ruth, thank you so much for your call. Unless there's something else you wanted to add?
No, thank you very much,
Okay.
Dr. Huffer.
Appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
Yeah. So, well, I want to get into and maybe there's some other foundational work you'd like to lay out here so people have a better idea of what we're talking about. But I think to me the problem is clear and it's familiar, and so I imagine it's pretty significant. I also imagine there's going to be a lot of folks who who feel the courts are doing an adequate job, and will defend it and find ways of dismissing what you're saying. I imagine this is not a non-controversial issue. In other words, I imagine you've got people on the other side saying Dr. Huffer is off the wall on this.
You know, the truth of the matter is, when the first book came out in 1995, I thought that would be the case. And my son really criticized me for calling it legal abuse syndrome. He said, "You're going to offend the lawyers." You would be shocked at the acceptance I've had over all these years, and how after I testify in court or I'm in court with someone as an advocate, the lawyers are handing me their cards when we go out the door, and they're saying, "I have these symptoms too."
Wow.
The courts are vicious for lawyers as well. It's become a war of attrition in many cases.
Let's continue to welcome some of our callers to the show here. Let's go to line 2 with Gina from Texas. And again, the number to call, 244-0077. Gina, welcome to the program.
Hi. I am from Texas, and I'm going through custody and visitation court case. And I have been diagnosed with PTSD for many years because my ex-husband had abused me, and he also abused our children. And it's been pretty tough emotionally for me that I have this PTSD now. So when I go into court, every time I see the man who's done those things to me, I cannot present. It's very hard for me to say things. I start shaking. I cannot form correct sentences.
So when your abuser is in the courtroom with you, it renders you incapable of really providing testimony.
Exactly. And I also have English as not my first language, so it compounds the problem because I forget the words I need to use. And it's hard enough to talk to other people like you or, like I'm doing now, but when I'm facing my abuser or my children's abuser in the court, it completely, makes me incapable of saying things at all. And the court, they just interpret it, I'm talking about the judge, they just interpret it as I don't want to present, or I don't, right. We asked the mother to give her side, and she didn't give her side, or she did not mention this and she didn't mention that. But
they misinterpret your maybe they think you're aloof or disinterested or something else. That they don't really understand what's behind your situation.
Now, Gina, the answer to this is that you are entitled to accommodations in that court under the Americans with Disabilities Act, Amendments Act. That means you can ask for to appear from a separate room. You can ask to appear telephonically. You can ask to have the view blocked to your ex and his legal team. There are a variety of things that can be done to help you. Have you applied for those, and has that been successful for you, or is this a new idea?
No, I actually have a disability advocate who has been helping me with applying for accommodations. And basically the courts, the judge, they ignore the process. Certain things as my disability advocate explained to me, in federal laws dictate that my medical information is protected, that it's a administrative request means the judge cannot put it in the pleadings. That basically has to happen before I even arrive. But the judge is basically marking the whole process. He took it in his own hands, and he's, making fun, and he's saying, "Oh, she doesn't look disabled, like she doesn't have a wheelchair."
Can a judge get away with that?
Many of them do. We had one in Florida that called said about our client, "Oh, she has post-traumatic stress disorder."
Okay, now I would think your attorney would say, "Hey, Your Honor, there's an issue here that of legal matter that you're ignoring." I mean, wouldn't it be the attorney's job to bring that to the judge's attention?
The attorneys are not schooled in this yet. We're out there training and working as fast as we can.
Because it's been passed but not funded.
That's right.
Yeah.
And they're used to old habits, such as if you have a diagnosis, you can lose custody. Can't do that anymore. Whole new world after 2009, thanks partly to your senator. And
Senator Harkin, just to make
absolutely.
Make it clear.
And what Gina is saying is that this should be administrative and sealed information protected under ADA, and HIPAA in many cases. But if the judge takes it on, this is really interesting because in my training with the DOJ and the American Bar Association, judges are protected from administrative decisions for several reasons. If I go in and ask a judge for accommodations for a client with a disability, I have to, one, tell them about the disability, what the symptoms are, how it's going to look in court. It can prejudice the judge for or against the client. It also is ex parte communication. So he has to be protected from that. So it goes through court administration quietly. Then he's told about the accommodations, he or she. They can then make substitutions if they want for the comfort of their courtroom. Yeah. But it's a mandate.
Well, Gina, you've read Dr. Huffer's book, perhaps?
Yes, I read the website and certain things that she's published. I didn't read the book itself, but I read the articles, numerous articles on her website.
You need to buy the book, Gina.
Little plug there. Well, I mean, it sounds like there is help out there, but again, it is a sticky situation.
It's finding it, educating as we go, sticking together. And Gina, what you have to do is stay firm. You've got a lot of people behind you. You've got a lot of things happening in. We criticize Congress a lot, but we have to give them credit for what they did with the ADA. They overturned 4 Supreme Court decisions. I've never seen that in my lifetime. Have you?
No, that is impressive.
That's huge. Mm-hmm. So we got to give them credit where they have it coming. That may be the only place they have it coming, but they do have it coming.
I think a few more, but there's a long list of complaints, though. Gina, thanks so much for your phone call.
Can I make one more comment very shortly?
Sure.
I just want to say that it's very hard to hold on and to take this only because the decisions of this judge are totally destroying my life and destroying the lives of my children. So on top of
are your children with you?
No, that's the point. That he basically, the judge, they took my children away and gave them to the man who abused them with plenty of evidence of abuse.
Do you see them?
That's horrible.
And he doesn't let me see them too.
How long since you've seen your children?
First of all, I haven't seen them for 8 years, then I shortly seen them for 1 month, and now I haven't seen them for another 2 years. And the problem also that he's using the court system to get financial advantage of me. He's basically going and ask the judge, to get child support and
from you.
Special. Yes.
But
so
you don't
I
get to see
one,
the children.
Exactly, and I'm the one who's paying the man who done all those despicable things to me and my children, and I don't even have access to the court. I'm just going there and...
We have extra problems when we have immigrant people who English is a second or third language, and then they come here and they get abused, so they have several layers of barriers to overcome.
Yeah, I understand that. I mean, I speak Spanish and some French, and when I get flustered, I do a very, very poor job. So I understand that entirely. Yeah. And I guess, I assume sometimes the court officials don't understand that. Well, Gina, I feel for you.
Thank you.
Hang in there. Good luck. And I'm glad you took the time to call, and hopefully it was a helpful conversation for you.
Thank you, Gina.
Mm-hmm.
And hopefully it was a helpful conversation for our audience and people who might be in a similar situation. We're going to take a short break here. I want to thank Sid's Catering by Sid, I should say, for helping to sponsor this program, along with Proof Restaurant. Proof is at 13th and Locust in downtown Des Moines and has a great lunch menu. In addition to that, they're now open Thursday and Friday nights for dinner, and I hear rave reviews about that. I still have not made it myself, full confessions, but I will. And I suggest you do as well. Again, some of the best food you can find is being offered by the new chefs at Proof Restaurant at 13th and Locust in Des Moines. I also want to thank some of our nonprofit organizational sponsors, the Progressive Coalition of Central Iowa, the Physicians for Social Responsibility Iowa chapter, and also the Iowa chapter of the Sierra Club. We'll be back in a minute on the Fallon Forum.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
Open Sesame is Des Moines' premier Lebanese cafe. This month, Open Sesame is offering an unbeatable lunch special on Monday and Tuesdays.
I'm Jen Green, and I'm here with
anything on Open Sesame's delicious lunch menu and get the second item for half price. That's right, buy one, get one for half price. Open Sesame's pita wraps, salads, soup, and mouth-watering Mideastern specialties will have you and your dining partner coming back again and again. Open Sesame at 313 East Locust Street in Des Moines' historic East Village.
Times are tough, and most people are just trying to make their cars last a little bit longer. That's why you should know about Sargent's Garage in Des Moines. You can trust Sargent's to make the right diagnosis and give you a fair price. Whether it's a routine oil change or a major repair, Sargent's always does outstanding work. So don't give up on that old car just yet. Call Sargent's Garage at 246-8149. That's 246-8149 for Sargent's Garage.
Community CPA is the 15th largest CPA firm in Iowa, providing audit, tax, and accounting services. Community CPA specializes in international tax treaty and double taxation avoidance among countries and states. 9 dedicated, experienced, hardworking staff are the company's foundation, and their compassion towards every client is the secret behind Community CPA's success. At Community CPA, you can expect quality service year-round. Call 288-3188. Community CPA, 3816 Ingersoll. Experience the difference.
Well, hi, I'm Rob Spearman. I'm a broker-owner of RE/MAX Real Estate Concepts in Des Moines, Iowa. Give us a call if you're looking at buying or selling a home, or if you're having trouble on your mortgage payments or looking to purchase foreclosures. We have the agents to help you, experienced, outstanding agents. Our office number is 515-276-2872. Or if you'd like to look at homes, go to our website, homeconnectusa.com.
Hi, I'm J. Michael McCoy, and about 20 years ago, I went to a used car salesman by the name of John Hewitt. He had a little shop over there on North 2nd Avenue called John's Auto Sales, and I bought a car. I found that experience to be one that I had never had before from a used car salesman. He was honest, he was dependable, he had integrity, and he did what he said he was going to do. Well, over the years, between my kids and grandkids, I've purchased 7 vehicles from John's Auto Sales. And last month, I asked him to be a sponsor. And he said not only would he like to be a sponsor, but he would offer a $100 tithe for every customer that came and bought a car from him directly to the church of your choice. I can tell you about their huge selection. I can tell you about their years of experience. I can tell you about their honest integrity. But all I really need to tell you is that I bought 7 cars, and you can trust them. John's Auto Sales, 5435 2nd Avenue, Des Moines.
You need a good ride when you hit the trail. Trust the man with the cars, and he goes by the name of Big John. Big John. Big John.
There is hope. Visit groundwire.net and chat now with a live coach for answers.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
Hello, folks. Welcome back to the conversation. A quick look ahead here. Tomorrow, that would be Wednesday, Arnie Arneson's going to join me. I'm going to give Arnie a chance to gloat because she called the Paul Ryan vice presidential pick before anybody else I know did. Also, tomorrow, activist and comedian Lee Camp will be with us. Lee Camp, funny guy, also really right on when it comes to analyzing the political climate in this country. Also tomorrow, energy guru Ed Woolsey will be with us, a.k.a. Iowa's Grizzly Adams. Anyway, we'll talk to Ed about wind, solar, and a lot of other good stuff happening with renewables. And on Thursday, now once President Obama leaves Iowa after his unprecedented 3-day visit, we'll talk about how that went, and we'll talk a little bit more about the Mitt Romney situation with Paul Ryan. And Charles Goldman will be joining us for that conversation. On Friday, we're going to go back to energy again, talking with Nathaniel Bayer about the Alliant Energy gas-fired power plant proposed for Marshalltown. Also, Barry Engelbretson with Primary Health Care will be joining us on Friday. So, plenty to talk about. You should not be afraid to criticize your friends, right? Okay, so I knew a bunch of the people involved with the anti-Ryan protest at the State Fair yesterday, and I got to say, I fully support people's right to protest. I protest a lot myself, but we got to be careful how we do this, folks. You can't just scream and shout. You can't charge a stage with a vice presidential candidate on it and expect that to look good to the general public. It doesn't come off well. It does not come off well. So I hope that folks out there who are concerned about the Paul Ryan budget and the effects it has on the poor, on the lack of any impact it has on reducing our involvement overseas, I hope you'll think about the fact that your message gets lost when you scream and shout and charge a stage. Sorry, folks. Got a call like I see it, and I don't think that's a good idea. But we got another conversation at hand here today. We're talking with Dr. Karin Huffer about legal abuse syndrome. This is the name of her book. This is her book. It's I've spent some time with it. It's good reading, and it is available down in we're in the Skywalk here, so I'm going to say downstairs at the bookstore. The bookstore is on Locust between 6th and 7th, and also at Alice's. Beaverdale. I call it Alice's place. Beaverdale Books up in Beaverdale. Yes, and
and they both have the new one too that has the Americans with Disabilities Act. It's actually a manual. It's the one that I say don't go to court without it if you have a disability, particularly an invisible disability.
This is your new book. Good.
Yes.
Okay. And I don't have a disability, but I have back trouble. And when I was in court in March for my Occupy trial, I found that I couldn't sit for the long periods of time that they wanted me to sit, and so it was explained to the jury that why I had to stand, because my attorney was concerned that I would appear aloof and just odd and whatnot. So that was explained. I mean, I will give the judge credit on that. She did take the time to understand what that was about and explain it. Again, that's a small point and not necessarily an internal one. But
it's a critical point. It's that this is a public service that has become not useful. In fact, it's become toxic to our health.
Which public service? The courts.
System. Yes. I have the warning on there. Warning, protracted litigation can be hazardous to your health, and it can.
Yeah, I saw that. Protracted litigation can be hazardous to your health. I spent a week in court, and it was long enough.
And if they're just kind... So much that goes so far.
Yeah. Let's go back to our phone lines again. 244 0077 0077, or long distance toll free number is 855-244-0077. Gosh, we're getting calls from all over the country today. You must have quite a network. This is Dana from Montana. Hello, Dana. Welcome to the program.
Hello. Thank you very much for having me.
Sure.
I wanted to both offer a comment and a question for Dr. Huffer, if I may.
Sure.
I wanted to say foremost that I thank her for her work, that this is a pervasive problem, and that her work is incisive and meaningful. And now for my specific question, and I'm so happy that we can talk about this on the air. I wanted to ask her particularly if this ADA advocacy is available and relevant to those who have PTSD as a result of domestic violence, find themselves litigating in the courtroom, and need an advocate for reasons of PTSD.
Yes.
To address that first?
Absolutely. Okay. Very, very important question. If you have any disability, any impairment that interferes with your ability to function in the courtroom, you are entitled under this law to the protection of reasonable accommodations. It has to not interfere with the court's business, and it has to not cost a lot of money. But most of the things that our people need are very simple. They need to not continue to be abused once they've been abused. If they go to court and you find the abuser using body language, it's quiet, it doesn't show up on the transcript, but they'll posture in such a way, or they'll glare at the person, or they'll have family members come and sit behind the person, giving a whole intimidation to that person while they're trying to function. you have to have accommodations. You have to have an advocate with you that knows what they're doing, and we do the training for that in webinars.
Can you specifically address how it is that the advocate would play a role, how it is that they would be able to intervene and advocate on behalf of this domestic violence victim who has PTSD?
Good question.
An overarching aspect of the legal abuse syndrome. Go ahead, please.
Good question. The advocate acts absolutely laser focused on the person and their functionality and what the accommodations are. They help design the accommodations. They help apply for them through court administration. You don't file a motion for these. This is not something the judge decides. This is a mandate from the federal government that says you must be accommodated. Like a ramp for a wheelchair,
right.
An invisible disability requires accommodations too. So the advocate does that. The advocate very often sits right next to the person in court. In fact, we have advocates, one that has broken new ground going to the witness stand with an autistic client that could not function. The client simply would have said anything that they asked the person to say. The judge could hear the entire conversation, but every single question the advocate had to interpret for the autistic person to really understand what it meant. And then the person was able to answer. So, you know, we offer all kinds of help for people with foreign language issues, interpreters, etc. But at this time, even though the courts are supposed to pay for such advocates, there just aren't funds, and it isn't being done.
So the changes to the ADA occurred in 2008, and our own Senator Harkin was, and as he always has been, a key leader in that effort. And good things were done relevant to trying to educate those involved with the court system about issues such as this. But no money appropriated. None.
That's right. And so we have to charge, although we're dirt cheap, we have to charge for our services. But we're doing the job. What they did was give us law that worked for our clients. Before, I had people with disabilities that were being denied custody because they had a disability. They were just flushed through the cracks of the court system.
So why? Again, there's probably an obvious answer to this, but I'll ask it just to make sure. Why? I mean, if Congress felt this was a good thing to do, why weren't they willing to appropriate at least some money to see it implemented?
Well, that's the question I have for them on just about everything that comes down. When No Child Left Behind came down to the schools, no money came with it, and yet it cost the schools a great deal of money to comply.
We have a situation here at the Iowa State House where work release facilities have been constructed, not just authorized, but constructed, but no money for staffing has been provided.
Exactly.
There's kind of a partisan battle there, but this has been 4 years since, actually we're into the 5th budget year since the changes to the ADA were made. And still nothing is being done.
No, we are trying to bring attention to that. We're trying to help people so that we strengthen them so they're not being flushed out of the system or dying in a war of attrition in the courts. But what's happening if they don't get accommodated, then they get legal abuse syndrome. And that's the classic case of legal abuse syndrome. You go into court with a depression, a PTSD, whatever. You get no accommodations. You get expected to hold your own. Very often our people lose their lawyers.
Dana, did you want to jump back in here?
Yeah, actually, I wanted to clarify for the purposes of this discussion that if I have this correctly, and on behalf of everyone who's a domestic violence victim, therefore secondary to that has PTSD as a result, finds themselves in a litigious circumstance or litigating in a courtroom, perhaps with that former coercive controller, over issues like child custody, for example. So I want to clarify, this advocate through the ADA is an accommodation that they can have.
Yes.
At this point, okay, thank you very much. And then at this point, it's not necessarily certain that would be paid for through some allocated funding, but they could still, on their own behalf, acquisition an advocate, have this accommodation, and this advocate would act specifically on their behalf.
Yes, and that's how we work. And we make sure that we clarify the difference between activist and advocate. Now,
Okay.
I'm an activist a lot of the time. However, when I'm serving a client, my focus is on their functionality only. We don't get involved in the legal case. It's not our business how it comes out. We just have to be sure our client can testify and participate.
Dana, thank you so much for the phone call.
All right. Thank
Appreciate
you as
it.
well.
Thank you. Good
Yeah.
question.
All right. Continue to fight the good fight.
Thank
All right.
you.
Bye-bye.
So basically, we got to go to a break here, but my quick question is, if there's any funding at all right now to educate key players in the court process about the rights of those with disabilities, it's all coming from nonprofits or pro bono work or some type of philanthropy, not a single penny of public money.
That's
even
right.
Even though the law changes implied that would be there, hasn't happened.
For the invisible disabilities.
Right.
Now, if
Yes,
you want hearing impaired ramps, that's provided at the court.
Okay.
But the invisible disabilities have fallen clear through the
Right.
cracks.
Folks, we'll take more calls when we come back. 244-0077 or toll-free 855-244-0077. Dr. Karin Huffer, author of Legal Abuse Syndrome and Unlocking Justice, is my guest today, and we're talking. Well, you've heard the conversation. There's a lot of angles on this. This affects a lot of different people in different circumstances, from veterans to people involved with fraud and fraud, either employment fraud or other types of deception, and certainly those involved in child custody issues, as we heard from the gal in Texas. Plenty of angles on this, and we're happy to take all calls relevant to any of those angles. I do want to thank some of our other sponsors, Reynolds Energy Solution. And you'll be interested in tomorrow's conversation with Ed Woolsey, because this ties right into Tim Reynolds' focus. It's energy efficiency, and Tim provides an audit that costs you nothing and yet will tell you plenty of things that you need to know about how to save energy, and along with that, saving money. So check out Tim's website, ReynoldsEnergySolutions.com, and tell him you heard about him heard about his business on the Fallon Forum. We'll be back in a few minutes with more conversation on this Webcast One live studio broadcast from the Skywalk across from Palmer's Deli in downtown Des Moines.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live. Well, good morning. This is the 7th of June in the Lord's year 2010, and this is day 1 of WebcastOneLive.com. We will begin with Max World Live with my special guest, Tom Coates. In just a minute, there's Tom. Wait, howdy. And we will be live for the very first time on Webcast One Live. Someday we're going to look back on this and say, gosh, remember that old day in history? Wonder where Walter Cronkite was. He must have been around hanging there too. But actually, it's the beginning of Webcast One Live. And thank you for listening. Thanks, Rob Spearman, and everybody who's put together this project together. And we're ready to go live now. So thanks for listening to MaxWorldLive.com.
I can't tell you that it's going real well from time to time, but it is going, man.
If your computer's not running up to speed, don't waste any time with 1-800 numbers. Call your local professional at Mid-Iowa Computers. Known for excellent customer service, they can help you with all your computer needs, including 100% electronic malware removal. If you've just had enough of your computer or other electronic device, bring it in to Mid-Iowa Computers and they'll recycle it for free. For more information, visit midiowacomputers.com or call 515-210-8536 and get your computer fixed by someone you can trust.
Nestled in the heart of downtown, Ritual Cafe is one of Des Moines' most unique places, offering a wide variety of coffee and tea. Ritual Cafe also serves the only all-vegetarian menu in town. And Ritual Cafe is a cultural hub for artists and musicians, with a performance stage hosting local, national, and international talent. Make Ritual Cafe a part of your daily ritual. On 13th Street between Locust and Grand in downtown Des Moines. And check out ritualcafe.com.
With warm weather finally here, it's time to think about upgrading the efficiency of your furnace and air conditioner. Leonard Tinker Heating and Cooling has provided honest, competent service for over 20 years. Whether it's your home or business, for repair work or to install a more energy-efficient furnace or air conditioner, call Leonard Tinker at 263-0422. That's 263-0422. For honest, competent heating and cooling service, call Leonard Tinker at 263-0422.
Ludwig van Beethoven here. I used to be so tired all the time, not from composing and playing, but from moving my piano. But now I feel so much better. I call S&P Piano and they will bring my piano anywhere. They also sell and rent pianos, used ones, new ones. You get the idea.
Call S&P Piano right away at 208-6453. That's 208-6453.
S&P Piano.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
Hometown, bringing us back to our conversation with Dr. Karin Huffer. You know, again, I said this earlier this week. Paul Ryan's budget is now owned by Mitt Romney. I think Paul Ryan's budget, the Path to Prosperity, which to me is eerily like the Contract on America from Newt Gingrich's 1994 leadership in Congress. I think Mitt Romney now owns his budget, and I think the more people see of it, the less they're going to like it. That's not exactly our topic today, but since we are talking about the lack of funding for ADA, I don't suppose Paul Ryan has that in his budget.
Oh, I can pretty well guarantee that we will be limping if he gets in and his budget is.
Well, we're already limping. We'll be dragging our hindquarters through the mud. I mean,
we'll all be really legally abused.
Well, what I don't understand is how you can come up with I understand the importance of eliminating the deficit, addressing the debt. Those are problems that we need to grapple with. But to do it by restructuring Medicare and Social Security. I mean, he won't even talk about really what he wants to do with Social Security, but restructuring Medicare where you're basically going to drive more seniors into poverty, and eliminating food stamps. I don't know what he wants to do that would affect people with disabilities or efforts such as you're involved with, but I can't be good. I mean, in the same budget, of course, we also see increases in military spending and bigger tax cuts for those who need them least. So,
I never hear them argue over spending money with the military or bombing a place. We're not arguing over that budget, but we argue over the budget that takes care of people.
Yeah, that portion of the budget, other than Medicare and Social Security, is a really small percentage. I mean, the discretionary spending in the federal budget outside of military spending is tiny. And those are the pieces that they tend to want to take the chips out of. And I guess I wonder, has Senator Harkin, again, a strong advocate for the funding needed to make sure that people who are suffering from legal abuse syndrome potentially have the advocacy they need. But how's the Obama administration been on this?
Good.
Okay.
They signed the international treaty for the disabled. They have been supportive.
Well, there's an international treaty?
Yes,
okay.
And they supported the Olmstead Act, which means you have to take the least restrictive choice with somebody. In other words, if you can't handle your finances and you're old, we don't pop you in a nursing home anymore. We say, what is the matter and what do you need to function? And then we try and help you with advocacy.
That is good.
Same in the court. What do you need to function? Not something's wrong with you, now you're going to lose your kids or your ability to do your own finances or your home.
Yeah.
What has happened to you? What do you need in order to function? If a country doesn't function that way, I think it's death to the culture eventually.
Well, and I hope that we don't get there because, a society, I think, is measured on many standards. The one is how well it treats the least among you, and it's also measured on how vibrant the culture is, but that's a different conversation.
But the other thing, hoarding is pathology.
Yes.
Psychologically. When did hoarding become a good business thing?
Let's, again, 244-0077, the number to call. Let's go to line 2 with Dr. Sandra Padron from Chicago. Am I saying that correctly?
Yes, you are.
Welcome to the show.
Good morning. Thank you very much for taking the call.
Yes.
I am calling regarding all these issues that Dr. Huffer is addressing. And I think that they're very pertinent and very important for the American public to hear. I think that it is a shame that so much is occurring that the legislators in the judicial branch and the government is ignoring and not really is turning a blind eye to the afflictions that are being pressed on the American people. And I'm saying this because of what I have seen, experienced, what I have seen on many, many fronts, and involved with other advocacy groups and professionals, many of which have been to Springfield, the Illinois State Capitol, within the last 6 months, and certain things have occurred here in the state.
What kind of doctor are you?
I am a pediatrician. I am a pediatrician who has 4 children. And I would like to just briefly state some of the problems with me that are occurring with, for example, the ADA and here in the state. Many of the abuses that are occurring are where there are all kinds of laws and rules and statutes that are being violated blatantly, where it's blatant to attorneys, and many of which just call it unfathomable. Even in speaking to attorneys in Washington, D.C., who have consulted the United States, who have been consultants for the United States Department of Justice, have called it unfathomable.
Well, what are you involved personally, Dr. Padron, or is this what you're seeing with your patients?
I have seen this with many other people, and I am personally involved as well.
What's happening to you? You're a doctor. You should be in good shape.
Well, yes.
I'm saying that kind of facetiously. You know, that's sort of what we say in this country. She must have a lot of money. She must be okay. Have a lot of social status.
Well, that's what happens to many of the professionals that end up involved in the courts. We know that in the U.S. there's a very high rate of divorce, and once you are in the court system, all these people are drained of all their assets, and this is going to people who are hoarding, like you were saying. That is a pathology, and it's a very disturbing, sick pathology.
Yeah, there, in Dr. Huffer's book, Legal Abuse Syndrome, there's a story about a man named James who had a net worth of, I think, $3 million, if memory serves, and despite his stature and his wealth, found himself victim of a scheme, basically a kind of a collaborative fraud practiced against him, and then that whole the fallout from that was exacerbated, and the legal proceedings that were needed to try to sort it out. So yeah, I mean, I think somebody even of some social standing can still find themselves in a very unfortunate position because of this.
Well, yes, and I'd like to tell you just briefly my story, and I would like to corroborate what you just said. I know people who have lost houses, cars. I know someone that lost about $20 million. I mean, just it's completely out of control.
Are you in divorce court?
I am. I have 4 children.
Are they with you?
They are not. They were taken away from me on an ex parte proceeding when I was not present to defend myself.
How long has it been since you've seen your children?
I have, in 2 years, I had seen them less than 1 day's worth, less than 24 hours, because severe and significant obstruction between all the parties involved. We are talking about what the Illinois House of Representatives has described cottage industry in their April 10, 2010.
What is the cottage industry?
POD report. The cottage industry is described as participants who, if they say it is in practice, however, this is just...
Are these court appointees? Are these psychologists and lawyers and those appointed by the court, guardian ad litem, to protect your children?
Exactly. It's supposed to be guardian ad litem, child representative, and all of this, and attorneys and custody evaluators that they have been, as has been described. It appears. Well, not it appears. I know it firsthand. I know many who have experienced it firsthand. Many people who have been trying to bring lawsuits, but because of immunity of judges and court appointees and some of these issues,
you feel ganged up on.
There is these people are losing custody. They are never getting on the stand.
Have you ever been convicted of anything, any wrongdoing?
In 3 years, I have not gotten to speak. I have been gagged. My children have been gagged.
You haven't been able to speak in court.
We have not been able to speak in court. They say they will try, but what they're doing is that they're not allowing the proper evidence to come to court. It's blatant fraud, and the reason for it is they're covering up blatant fraud, where my former husband pre-planned divorce, forged my signature on IRS documents, on mortgage bank,
and he planned and executed a whole ambush on you then.
How do you sort through all that? I mean, it's quite a web.
It is, and the important thing here is, who do you get to help you? You hire an attorney, and the typical routine that I see, they give an attorney a large retainer, whatever the attorney asks, and then they think they're in good hands. Pretty soon they find that it's not working in their favor, and but the money's gone.
Yeah.
Then they try and go in pro se without a lawyer. And that's disastrous for them, and especially if they have an invisible disability. They simply can't function compared to a legal team.
I've been fortunate in the 2 different times that I've had to use the court system. I've had very good attorneys, but I know plenty of other people in similar situations, Sharon, that do not feel they've gotten their money's worth, and in fact found themselves in a deeper hole legally than they were at the start of things.
Well, and the crazy thing, if you have symptoms and PTSD, one of my good lawyer friends says, all my clients chase me, call me, and want to talk to me, except those with PTSD. They avoid me. I have to call them, chase them. They forget their papers. So lawyers get impatient with them.
Sharon, or Sandra, rather, I've got to go. I've only got another couple minutes left here.
Can I ask one
Sure.
thing about addressing the ADA and the fact that it appears that there is no access? There's apparently supposed to be ADA coordinators throughout the state.
That is a huge problem. Would you, if you want to email me, can I give her my email?
Sure, of course.
Email at legalabuse@gmail.com. If I can see we're running out of time here probably. But
Yes.
email me, and I will be glad to correspond with you that way. Can I give my website?
Yeah, legalabuse@gmail.com, and your website?
EqualAccessAdvocates.com.
EqualAccessAdvocates.com.
All small and all one word.
Okay. Sandra, thank you so much for the phone call.
Sure. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sandra.
So it's been a pleasure talking with you. I don't know how much longer you're in Des Moines for, but
It's been a lot of fun for me, and I'm here a while.
you are okay.
A few more days, anyway.
Good. Well, we ordered exceptionally good weather for you.
I
We don't normally do
appreciate
that for our
and
guests.
I'm
You're
going
pretty special.
to eat at the restaurant you said.
Okay, Proof Restaurant, yes. Yeah, and again, thanks so much for joining us. I wish you well in your work. It's challenging. It's heart-wrenching work. It reminds me very much of the work I was involved with as a state legislator, working with people who had different issues with the human services system or the Department of Corrections. It's just it can be a very tangled web, and sometimes it's really hard to sort it out and to reach a truly just conclusion.
But the truth is, we're turning cases around. The
Yeah.
ADAA and your wonderful senator, this has been a legal game changer. And it's the first really inspiring hope we've had in a long time.
Good. Well, thank you to Senator Harkin for that, and thank you for your work. Folks, we will be back tomorrow, of course. I want to take a second to thank one of our other business supporters, the Gateway Market. Gateway is in Sherman Hill, historic Sherman Hill. Gateway Market is at 20th and Woodland, kind of between 20th and ML King on Woodland, and have a lot of local stuff. Great selection of dairy, over 200 cheeses. And with a guy like me who does not really understand wine very well, I trust that the Abby there on the wine counter is going to tell me the right stuff I need to know. Anyway, so check them out, folks. Gateway Market at Woodland and ML King. And you can be confident that if you shop at Gateway, you're not going to be sending your money to some corporate headquarters from, some big national chain that wants to come to Des Moines in some other part of the country. So, again, thanks for all the businesses that help support this program. Thanks again to Catering by Sid. You got an event to cater? Sid is the gal to go to. She does some fine work, and I would highly recommend getting in touch with her. Website, I don't know what it is, but if you send me your contact information and you're interested in getting a hold of Sid, I will make sure she gets that information. Folks, thanks so much. Again, tomorrow we'll be back with a whole bunch of other conversations, including energy, Arnie Arneson, and more Paul Ryan stuff, and crazy path to I almost said path to posterity. That's kind of a nice pun. Path to prosperity conversation. Thanks again, and stay tuned. Bradshaw will be with you at 1:30 coming up here shortly.
Leach, owner and general manager of Service Legends. I brought along a couple of the home comfort heroes.
Hi, I'm Tammy Wells.
I am Nick Wondershot.
I am administrative manager.
I am the senior technician
from Service Legends.